Tells me to get over it. Yeah. You know, a lot of times it's like putting it back on you. Being in denial. Hard to admit and accept what just happened. That is one of the hardest things of like, can I actually accept what just happened? When you accept it, Angie, when you accept it and you start to realize, like, wait a second, this actually happened. It's not to shame you. It's not to put you down. It's not to make you feel awful. But when you accept it, you get to the place where you can actually move forward. Like until you accept it, there's nothing you can actually build off of that. Anxiety, panics, feelings is the only things left. Yeah, a lot of it happens. A lot of this aspect like builds up and you feel frustrated, you feel hurt, you feel discouraged. Like it builds up to such a place you're like, I don't actually know what's going on. I don't actually know what's true anymore. This piece of being put in a fog, fear, obligation, and guilt, that is what leaves you stuck. It leaves you stuck, immobilized to a toxic person or in a toxic relationship or ruminating about that toxic person. And until you actually change the story that you believe, you will always stay stuck in that relationship. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to be able to check it out, you can go to escapetoxicity.com for the challenge. We have a 7-day challenge on there. If you want to work with me one-on-one of actually helping maximize where you are right now, I have some people that just want to do the challenges. Other people, it's like, hey, I want access to you and I want to be able to talk to you, to have you answer questions, to coach, to work with me. And I work with people inside our Thriver community moving forward. Like maximum amount of growth as quick as possible, because my investment into you is saying I'm going to spend as much time as I can to be able to help you change your thought process, rewire the story that you're believing. Until we change the story that you're believing, you will always go back to a toxic person and you will always ruminate and you always have these intrusive thoughts every single time. I've seen it where people come to the table 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, and they come and they talk to me and they're like, I'm still stuck. And typically that's because they haven't actually changed the story that they're telling themselves. So you need to understand, in order to be able to do that, we have to go through this process to be able to change who you are, to be able to change the thought process. Until we actually change that, nothing's ever going to change. Got a couple minutes left. I'll take a couple questions. If you guys have questions about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, or what I do, trying to be able to help people on a day-to-day basis, feel free to drop those into the comments and we can touch base on those. Because I can tell you see the reality that where you currently are, the reality you're currently in, isn't where you have to live forever. You can actually move to a different version of yourself, a new version of yourself, a growing version of yourself versus the person right now that feels broken, alone, isolated, and not sure what to do. By creating habits, by building these habits into your life on a day-to-day basis of how you actually move forward and how you get free. He just discarded me and left my stuff in the apartment lobby like nothing. Blamed me for everything wrong in his life, including his financial situation. It had nothing to do with me. You're seeing something that'll happen oftentimes with a narcissist. Like it has to be your fault. It can't be his fault. It has to be your fault. The blame has to go back on you. And so typically they're going to do anything and everything to put that blame on you versus them actually taking accountability for it. 100%. We see that all the time. The thing is, you have to be able to separate that, because otherwise it's so easy for that to end up like running on top of you and you feeling that and you applying that to your life and you taking responsibility for another person's actions. It's one of the things we talk about and one of the challenges of like being able to separate that, because like otherwise you're not able to actually move forward because you're still clinging on to a piece that you're like, oh, maybe this was my fault. Maybe I caused this. Maybe it was my toxicity when it had nothing to do with that. It just had to do with what that person wanted. Some people you think are narcissists are just straight psychopaths. Yeah, 100%. At the end of the day, a narcissist, a psychopath, sociopath, whoever, like if they're not actually demonstrating change, honesty, and vulnerability, then you're just living a pipe dream. You're not actually with a person. You're with a shell of everybody. So you need to be able to understand, in order to be able to move forward, to be able to break free, it's absolutely important to be able to change the story that you believe. Like if you're at the place today where you're constantly having to reset yourself and you're like, I'm not really making this progress that I feel like I need to be able to make, reach out. Because I talk with people that feel like they're just stuck mentally and emotionally. And they're like, I don't actually know how to move from here, from point A to point B. We actually talked about in one of our groups last night about this idea of like indecision, of like when you're sitting at the crossroads and you have like 9 different choices, like what do I actually do? Well, when you're sitting at the crossroads figuring out what is my growth going to go next, you're like, what do I actually do? And this is why we started to build a path and a plan of like, hey, it works like this. You go step by step by step by step to give you structure, to give you a plan moving forward so that you can heal. My goal is to partner with you to actually change like where you are from a healing journey into becoming a growth mindset. And as we continue to go this way, it becomes a way of life. It becomes a process that you start to live by every single day that helps you rewire who you are and how to actually move forward. Okay. Are some narcissists maybe overt ones more successful at finding sources of supply, like others say vulnerable, covert types? I wouldn't say necessarily. Maybe a certain type of people could be attracted to that more. A lot of times you see vulnerable and covert types with people longer. Okay. How do you change the story you tell yourself? Okay, it'd be hard to put it all in here, but I'll put it all in here really quick. This is what we discuss inside the 45-day challenge and what we do every single day inside of the Thriver community. Every single day you get a trigger, and that trigger activates your emotions and your feelings about a certain topic, subject, person, place, thing, whatever it might be. Whenever that happens, you start to tell yourself a story. When that story actually resonates with you, you start to act upon it. Everybody is made up of stories, and there's not one person on the planet that doesn't have thousands of stories that actually affect who they are and the direction they're going. And so you start to believe these stories, and these stories you create, you've had them impressed upon you. You've developed them through your childhood, through your upbringing, through church, religion, like education, all these different things. These stories that are upon you, that you start to live them out thinking that that's reality when it's not. And so we take these stories and we put them up against logic and the facts of the situation, and we come up with the news story of what is actually true, what is actually real, and then we have to replace it. And when you start replacing the truth that you want to hold on to with the actual truth, with the real, with the raw, with the facts, then we start moving forward. And this is how we start to develop like living by a code of this is how we're going to respond and act every single time. This is how we start to develop how we process things to be able to put out our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas in this format to be able to help change the dynamic versus letting it control you. And that's the thing is a lot of times people let it control you versus you being in charge of your emotions and you being able to work through that. Been no contact for a month with my ex-narcissist boyfriend that discarded me and feeling better. But part of me wonders if you'll ever reach out. How can I let go of this? I'd encourage you to try out the 7-day challenge because it is a process. It is a process to be able to rewire your mindset because otherwise you will still go back if that mindset stays the same. You can reach out to the escapetoxicity.com or you can reach out at rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to work with you one-on-one. Like that's what I try to help people every single day to rewire the thought process because otherwise, if you don't change it, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, yeah, I just want to stop thinking about them. I just want to stop ruminating. I just want to stop having the intrusive thoughts. And I was like, how's that working out for you? They were like, not very well. And I was like, exactly. Because when you focus on just stopping, nothing's actually changing. Like we have to be able to develop and change how we're actually thinking about these things, implementing new habits, implementing self-care, implementing things that don't add a ton of time to your every single day, but help you actually make sure that it is geared in the right direction. It's going in the direction that you want to go, in the direction you want to grow. Okay. So it's absolutely essential to change the story that you believe. And until you do that, a lot of times you'll still be stuck in the rumination. If you're stuck in the rumination, in the intrusive thoughts, if you're still stuck in the mindset or the trauma bond, reach out today. You can do it like on your own, doing the 7-day challenge for $7, or you can do it contacting me and we can do it together, like working with, like scripting out the plan of this is how we're actually going to accomplish this in this time period. The Thriver community that we have is a 90-day program that I partner with you for 90 days to help break you free of that thought process, help move you forward. If you're interested in getting more information about that, you can go to rawmotivations.com. You can click on the escapetoxicity.com to be able to check out the 7-day challenge. Thank you all so much for listening, for hanging out for a few. I appreciate you all. You all have a blessed and awesome day.